Howdy, folks. I can't wait till December 26th. I'm,
Wow,
I'm
that's
really,
how you start a show.
I'm just getting sick of the music. I'm getting sick of the lights. I'm getting sick. It's like, people around here have been, it's like getting ready for Christmas since November 1. So by the time it's December 21, I want it all gone.
Yeah, I get it. Like, there's no annoying Hanukkah songs to bother people. That's the one good thing about Hanukkah. It's forgotten when it's gone.
Sure, there is Adam Sandler. Everything.
Yeah, but that's the only one. Like
Hanukkah song.
or dreidel, dreidel, dreidel. There's not much, but Christmas songs do tend to linger. I will say this year I've been insulated from a lot of that. I haven't really, other than at hockey games, I don't go to malls. I don't do a lot of that stuff. So I've really been insulated. So I don't have the same feeling as Mike.
Great. I'm the lone grouch. Thanks.
Yeah, there's got to be Scrooge in every organization, Mike.
There you go.
Thank you very much. I'm Frank Cross from Scrooged. I'm Bill Murray, except I'm not the head of a TV network.
Right.
Speaking of TV and speaking of the Winter Classic, which will be on NBC on New Year's Day between the Buffalo Sabres and the New York Rangers. Now, the funny thing is this game is considered a home game for the Sabres because of the strange rule. No, what was it, Ross? The
Rangers have an agreement with Madison Square Garden. They're not allowed to be a home team anywhere but Madison Square Garden.
So if Madison Square Garden collapsed, they'd have to play in the collapsed building.
Right.
Okay. Well, so this is being played at Citi Field, the home of the two-time World Series champion New York Mets. And
it hurt him to say that, Peter. It did.
Well, no, I'm saying that in contrast to the 27-time world champion New York Yankees. But it's fitting. It's fitting. The musical act for a Buffalo Sabres home game is the Goo Goo Dolls, Buffalo's own Goo Goo Dolls.
Yeah, I'll tell you what though, they've really branched out in the last 3 or 4 years in the sense that for the last couple of years they've been in the Macy's Day Parade too. So they've been seen around the greater New York area as well. So I think it's good for them. I met those guys once. I think they're cool. I like their music. They're excellent in concert. Like people,
yes.
I think people just think about their ballads and don't really realize that they're a good rock band. You have to see them in concert to appreciate it. And I think they're going to surprise a lot of people at the Winter Classic. I do. I mean, I'll tell you, Winter Classic's had some good bands. I mean,
yeah,
like it or not, like I love Styx, so that was great. They had Billy Idol.
That's the sentimental thing.
Yeah, Billy Idol was good though. Still, I mean,
Bryan Adams was good last year for the.
Bryan Adams was excellent. They've had a lot of good talent, and that's I appreciate that part of it because let's face it, it is one of those big overblown games.
Well,
this is the 10th anniversary, which is cool. I was at the first one. I wrote a book on the Winter Classic. If you want to go to Amazon.com and buy it, that'd be great. Or you could DM me or whatever, and I'll sign one for you. But no, I just love the Winter Classic.
He'll drop it off. He'll drop it off for you.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Well, you know what? The NHL does a lot better job of talent managing for concerts than the CFL does in the Grey Cup because it's just terrible.
Well, the hip one. The hip
was played there when I was at the Grey Cup, and that was good.
I heard glowing reviews of Shania Twain for the most recent.
She was terrible.
It wasn't. Here's the thing. I watched it. I watched the Grey Cup every year. I didn't think it was terrible. I thought it was cool that she got brought in on the sled. Was it a little weird? Sure. The one thing I have to give her great credit for is that she was walking around in high heels on like a metal stage in the snow. Like that was risky.
That's why she was brought in on a sled because she couldn't walk out.
Yeah.
I think the NHL does a much better job than the NBA. I think the most embarrassing, and the thing is, I think Sting is great. I was a big fan of the Police, and I like his solo stuff, a lot of his solo stuff. But Sting at an NBA All-Star game was like the most painful thing. Like when he's singing Roxanne, a song about a prostitute.
He's become a lounge singer. That's the problem with Sting. When he's on his own, that's what he is.
Yeah, but like I was saying, it's like he's singing Roxanne, a song about a prostitute, to a bunch of NBA All-Stars who frequent prostitutes. So, well, some of them we've heard the stories. I'm not talking. But anyway, so a couple ancillary things about the Winter Classic. Then we'll get on to like the latest news and stuff. Russ, you said I saw the picture of Henrik Lundqvist's pads with we see the outline of the city, the basically the emblem, the Mets emblem, but then is the NY it's on there, is that like the sort of like a throwback?
That's the throwback thing for the Rangers, but it's nice. Like, look, I'm an admitted Met fan, and a lot of Met fans appreciate the fact that there is that, you see like the baseball, you see the outline of the cityscape on the ball, and that's really nice. You see the baseball seams, so it's sort of cool. And Lundqvist gets into that, and I like that. I mean, most of the goalies do, and that's another fun thing about the Winter Classic is like even that second backup goalie gets a brand new mask and stuff just in case he plays. Like these guys are all into it.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned the mask, because it was really strange today that Robin Lehner, prior to Sabres practice, was wearing an old Jerry Desjardins face mask. And I'm like, wait a second, why is he wearing? Because Jerry Desjardins' career was ended by the mask being broken by a shot. The mask shattered and the fiberglass hit his eye, and that was what ended his career. And I'm like, you could have worn a Don Edwards, beehive mask or Tom Barrasso. Why do they pick out Jerry Desjardins?
I'll tell you why. Remember there was that company like a year ago that was going to have the second Titanic voyage, and they were going to be like, we could do it now. We've got the technology, and it never happened. Like the whole thing never happened. Right. I think Leonard figures, well, now with today's mask technology, let's give it another go.
Great, there you go. Will they deliver that mask in James Dean's Porsche Spider? Yeah, come on. I mean, come on.
Mike is very macabre today in this opening. We need to get onto the show.
All right,
macabre. That's a good word, Russ.
Thank you.
You can tell you're a writer because
I appreciate that.
That's nice.
Hello, Hockey World. Today is Thursday, December 21st, 2017.
Hi, I'm Peter Tessier, wearing a toque in Winnipeg.
I'm Russ Cohen, just wearing a hat. I never wear a toque.
I'm Michael Lagello, just wearing my bald head here on the Hockey Buzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. Russ, let's get started with the news happened yesterday regarding the Belmont Arena situation. There were some more details that came out after some of the interviews. We'll talk about Tavares' comments afterward, but the indication is this is all going to be privately financed between the Islanders and this Oakview group, and I know it's the Wilpons and Dolan are all involved in this. Yep. It's a $1 billion project, and I guess that with this there'll be a 45 or 49-year lease, and they'll be paying rent. I mean, this sounds like a very complex situation, and the one thing that I would be hesitant about is like these kinds of situations, sometimes they run into problems.
They're all complex in New York. Like it's just, and especially Long Island. But the difference of this to like the Lighthouse project is they never had it green lighted by the state.
Right.
So this is green lighted by the state. So that already puts them in a different market than the other deals. And that's why people should never lump them together.
Yeah.
You got to remember, there's that similarity with the Barclays group that owns the Barclays that runs the Coliseum, right? And so there's that. They've got the contract through next year. So we expect the Islanders to play one more year at Barclays. And then, like I reported a week ago on Steve Cooley's show on Sirius, that I expect them to play in the Coliseum for that following season. Because even if it's a 20-month situation, then maybe they'll play the last quarter of the season in the new arena, but they'll play the big part of it at Nassau Coliseum. I fully expect that to happen. I took a lot of heat on Twitter because a lot of people were like, who's this Ross Cohen guy? And I laughed at that one because they didn't even spell my name right, so that was great. Or who's this guy? I'll believe it when I see it in real print, not this guy. And it's like, hey, okay, but I have good sources, and I really do think this is going to happen. And as a former Long Islander who goes back every year. I think it's great. Even growing up as a Ranger fan, the Islanders were their number one rival after a while. The Flyers used to be. And so you didn't want them to move out of state. If they moved out of state, they would cease to be their number one rival. And actually, if they went to a place, let's just say like all the Ranger fans joke about Quebec, had they gone to Quebec, it would just evaporate. All those that great history would evaporate. And that would bother me. So I'm glad that didn't happen. I'm glad now. This is the other bone of contention. This is technically in Queens, but it's on Long Island. And when you saw the press conference yesterday, they said, welcome back to Long Island. And everybody, there's always like a couple people that are getting a snit about this. But the bottom line is if they ever evacuated Long Island, they'd be evacuating those people too, because it's on the island.
Right. Who's this Gary Cohen guy? No. Now, Peter, the thing I remember is Gary Bettman, and this was, I think, last year, said there is no scenario that we're ever going to play another game at Nassau Coliseum. Well, okay, I think that those comments were made essentially in terms of a permanent return. But I think that they're going to be – actually, I think it'll be a good thing for them to go back to Nassau Coliseum for 1 year if it's an entree to the new building on Long Island, because it's sort of like going back to your history. The building is renovated. It won't have as many seats, but I actually think it'll be cool and it'll be a good thing as long as this building gets built. Because if this falls apart, then I think all the scenarios that Russ just talked about could come to fruition. Like,
you know, big hat tip to Russ for calling this and getting in on this. But here's the interesting thing: like, it probably serves the franchise better to go back to Nassau for a year or something because of the marketing possibilities here.
Right. You re-spark that base.
The history.
Right. Yes.
You can get alumni involved and all sorts of things to move into this position. It's revitalizing where your fan base was. It's re-energizing it and it's bringing it back. And that could be an amazing thing. This deal isn't without some controversy. I was reading some things earlier about it, and it's a 49-year lease,
right,
for $40 million. And the website Field of Schemes did a little bit of research on this, and they had some stuff where they looked at a vacant piece of property that was not even close to the acres here. It was like a third of an acre, which is going for $750,000. So there's a sweetheart deal on the lease. Okay, that's fine. But back to your point, Mike, about Gary Bettman. Well, there's no way we're going back to Nassau Coliseum. Well, Gary, that's fine, Gary. You'll go back there for a month, 18 months, 20 months. If you've got a privately financed deal in place for a team, that is Gary Bettman's, that's his dream situation, to have an ownership thing where the state's also apparently going to kick in money to boost the rail line out there as well.
Yeah, that's
the thing too.
But there's a lot of bitching going on about that too, Peter, because there's going to be it won't be a direct line. It'll be like one stop where you have to get off the train, get out of the track, go climb over, get up some steps, go down the steps, and get back on another train. I did that a million times in my youth going to a Met game. But you know what? If you want
Doesn't every New Yorker do that?
Not everyone, not all of them.
Peter, all I can say is give me a train from Fort Erie to Toronto and back that I can take. So cry me a river if you have to get off on one stop.
I know.
Oh, it's nothing. You should see what English football fans do, soccer fans do to go to games, right? It's nothing. And here's the thing, from a state perspective, I don't know this in detail. I skimmed the Field of Schemes article, but if there's an infrastructure play which gets, a lot of people can get really upset about with taxpayers, but if it serves the general interest of the communities surrounding it and gives you an infrastructure play that they'll come in on the infrastructure side, what would you rather do? Would you rather your tax-paid dollars go into the building, or would you rather it go into the infrastructure? I'm taking infrastructure.
Yeah, I'll take infrastructure too. The one thing that's a little unclear for this deal, I joked about, was that innovation center. We don't know what that is. Is that going to be like an incubator? Is that going to be like a place for new businesses to start up in? Or is it going to be like a place where all the smart guys on Long Island just go and report to this office and just like a library. Like, you don't know. But obviously they're going to do it to make money, so I would imagine it's like an incubator.
Yeah, it's going to be a video arcade like the place on the boardwalk in the movie Big.
But people will be excited because, again, think about how many years it's been since Islander fans had the correct arena for their teams. Like, I know everybody wants to fall back on, hey, I went to that last Islander Ranger game, which was the last couple of games at Nassau, and there were a ton of Ranger fans there. No question. Probably 55, 60%. But they also knew their team was leaving. So when a fan base knows the team's leaving, even though it's the last time you're going to see them, there are people that just stop showing up. Then Barclays happened, and I pointed out on this show, very first show, I did not think it was going to be successful, and I remember Eck didn't like that and went back and forth with me on it, but it hasn't been successful.
No.
All that said, this will spark the fan base going back to the Coliseum. I think it's only going to be for that one season, though, Peter. I think Barclays will let them ride out the lease for them, though. I think that.
I mean, that's enough. I mean, but I agree with what Peter was saying is that I think promotionally it'll be great. But I mean, Russ, the thing is, we knew Barclays was not going to work because when you got a friggin' Honda SUV slapped up against the end boards, and you've got sight lines that are cut off, and it's what 12,500 seats. I mean, that's a disaster. On top of the ice being bad, and then using PVC piping instead. I mean, come on, how many signs did you need to know that this was a cluster?
Well, I mean, though, the Honda SUV is now ranked #1 by Road and Track, so I mean, they certainly have helped us.
That's why I may buy one. There you go. Okay, but. After the presentation yesterday, John Tavares, who was there I
don't know why Billy Joel was there. I get he's a longtime Long Islander. Like, he's
going to open the new building. I guess that's apparently
going to open the new building like he did the Coliseum. Okay.
Yes.
Because that's good. Because he, just so people know, he's a legendary Long Island guy. He's from a few towns over from me. When you basically grow up on Long Island, you heard Billy Joel. And I'll be honest, friends of mine know in high school, some of that early stuff, I wasn't a huge fan of. I was more into like heavy rock music at the time and liked more of his rocking stuff. But like when he went to Glass Houses, I didn't go with him, Yeah. But then over time, I was back in Billy Joel's corner, and now I'm just as big a fan as I ever been of his. And so that's cool that he'll open it.
He's still better than Springsteen. It
goes without saying. It's not, Peter, he's better in concert. We're not saying he's a better.
You know what? And I'm not even a huge Springsteen fan.
I'm saying he's better overall. Screw Springsteen. Okay. He's terrible.
Little side note on Billy Joel. If you haven't seen the movie, it's on Netflix, a documentary called Hired Gun.
Yes. Really
good. Well, maybe adjust your opinion of Billy Joel a little bit, though, but it's really good.
Billy Joel, listen, he's had issues. We all know about it.
Sure.
If you lived on Long Island, you know. But you know what? He is a musical genius as well, because for all the songs he's written, and he's written so many, right? All those medleys were in his head. Those melodies were all in his head, which is crazy to think that a human's walking around the earth and like he has to write down these songs because that's what was sort of playing in his head. Like that's crazy.
No, and a comparative to him who also is a musical genius and similar, and also has similar reputations, Elton John.
Yeah. Yes. Oh yeah. And they toured once together. They did.
Really, that'd be wild.
Except the only difference is that Bernie Taupin wrote most of the stuff with him, and Billy Joel was essentially a solo in terms of lyrics and music. But anyway, we'll get back to hockey here.
Way to ruin that for Elton John, Mike.
Sorry about that. John Tavares was at the presentation, and when asked by reporters, he said, he didn't want to lock himself or corner himself, and said, this being the whole building, it's not going to change or make my decision. So he's still, and I don't blame him at all. He's still like being
we talked about it yesterday. We did.
Yeah, I think it's smart for him to be skeptical of the whole thing, just to keep an open mind on it. I mean, everybody thinks now that the building has been announced, okay, John, sign on the dotted line. Well, no.
Yeah, no. He's testing the market. Like, why wouldn't he?
Yeah, no, Peter, I think that Tavares is going to the 5-day negotiating window before July 1st. He's going to hear offers from other teams, and then he may very well, more than likely, if this continues to go in this direction, as Kevin Allen has said on Monday, he thinks that Tavares is going to sign with the Islanders, but I think he's going to keep his options open, and he'd be stupid if he doesn't.
You know what those words from Tavares mean? It's code to Gar Snow. Find me a goalie now.
Right.
Like that's what that, right? Get off your butt, Garth, and get moving. We've actually got a decent team here. Fix it. You can do it.
They're second in the NHL in goals for, and I believe they have the worst goals against in the NHL. So, I mean, we're going to talk about teams after the trade freeze that may kick things into gear. I think the Islanders are one of them, and I think that they're going to be, we mentioned Robin Leonard before. There are a couple other goalies out there that I think would be upgrades on Halak and Greiss. This is an opportunity here. They have to show that they mean it when they want to win, and I think the only way that they can really reflect that to Tavares is to get yourself a number, so at least somebody who's better prepared to be a number one than these guys, because neither one of them are number ones anymore.
Yeah, and you know what? And knowing Tavares, because he's pretty low key, I don't expect him to take advantage of the private jet flights and little tours that teams will give. I think he's gonna have everybody schlep into his agent's office, and they'll go one after the other, and there'll be somebody from TSN camped out there, and he'll report everybody that goes through there, and that's how they'll do it.
Yeah. I hope there's a fast food place outside of the agent's office, because I might be there. You never know.
Toronto will bring donuts. I think that's the best move. Don't bring Boston pizza, because Tavares plays in New York. He knows what real pizza is. Boston pizza, I still don't understand that whole thing in Canada. It doesn't make sense. It's not terrible.
No.
It's not actually bad, but it's not great.
It's just the name of the business. It's not like it's –
But why Boston? There's no Boston anywhere near – there's no Boston in Canada that I'm aware of.
I don't know, but I know that it's not like Boston type pizza. It's the company's name was Boston, like Boston Market.
Yeah.
Right. Why? But they're not in Boston. They're nowhere near it.
I know. It doesn't make any. I'll do a full explanation of it at a later date. But
Please do.
Okay.
Well, you know what, Russ? Just call up Treliving in Calgary, the GM, and ask him what the hell was your dad thinking when you came up with that name.
Right.
Well, next time I see Brad, I'll just ask him.
Yeah. There you go.
Okay. So we had the trade freeze. We had a few minor deals. A lot of stuff came out after that, including something that Eck wrote yesterday about the Detroit Red Wings. And let's start with them first, because there are a few teams here that I think are poised to make some moves right after that trade freeze drops off. I think it's December 28th. The Red Wings, in spite of the fact that they beat the Islanders 6-3, but they lost to Philadelphia yesterday, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Craig Custance is reporting that they're trying to deal Peter Mrazek, that they potentially could get themselves a third, maybe a second round pick based on eating some of the salary. And the name of Mike Green continues to be out there. Peter, I think Mike Green. I mean, we know what Mike Green is. We know what type of defenseman he is. There's been some speculation about the Leafs being interested in him. I think Lou Lamoriello is smarter than that, because I don't think that they need another guy who's going to give up the puck like Jake Gardner does. So I don't think Toronto, unless they get him for a song, they're interested. But there are other teams that need puck-rushing, offensive-minded defensemen that I think Green would be a fit with. And I think there's going to be enough teams out there that they can get the bidding up to maybe a low first-round pick. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, defense always asks for, you always get more for them, right? It's just that simple. I mean, but then again, what I think if you're going to get into the level of a low first round pick, there's going to be a whole bunch of conditional things, and it's going to be conditional on this year, probably not. Next year, maybe. Like, Russ, that you understand the years and what's coming up in the pipeline. And that's where I could see if you're going for a first for Green, it might not be a 2018 first. Maybe it's a 2019.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a 2019, because I don't think anybody's going to want to give up the 2018, especially if they're going to be in the top 10, unless they're going to start being like the NBA and say top 10 protected. And then if they're in the top 10, then it goes to 2019. The NHL hasn't done that. And I'm sure Mike would have wished Toronto did that back in the day.
No, there are lottery protected picks now. I mean, I know that there's basically it's an.
Have they really come into play though?
That's a condition though. The condition is if we end up tanking or being bad, and we get a lottery pick in the top whatever, and it can be a lottery pick in the top 10, you can put a condition on the trade, and that's the same thing. It's just a condition on the trade.
Yeah, no, I know, but I don't think we've seen it really come into play where a team.
Yeah, I don't know if for some reason it's a pick that I think Arizona got, but there was a trade.
No, this has happened. This has definitely happened where it was a top something, it deferred to the next year.
It definitely did. Okay, so there may have been one that slipped by me. Okay.
Yeah, and I think a few years ago the Sekera to LA deal between Carolina that had a provision or a protection that all it would do is if the pick was a certain level, they would move to the next year. But the thing is, you move to the next year, there's no protection on it. It could be a top 5 pick. So
it still could be. Yeah,
it still could be. But
I mean, this draft is defense rich, so teams are not going to want to trade out of it if they can help it.
But if you look at Detroit, other than Mrazek and Green, there's not a lot to sell there unless teams are willing to. And Russ, the name of Nicholas Kronwall was brought up when I was talking to a reporter in Toronto. And the thing is, I know that on a previous webcast, Kevin had said, Kronwall has been playing on one leg all year, but he's been playing well on one leg. And the thing that would dissuade teams from having an interest in trading for him, it's the same as the Vinny Lecavalier situation. He's got a year after this year. Mm-hmm. There's a possibility they could trade him, but only if like the team that he gets traded to has some sort of like agreement or some sort of guarantee that you're retiring after this year, because we won't trade for you unless you have if you have an extra year in your contract and you want to actually serve that deal out.
Yeah. It's interesting. Yesterday, I didn't go to the Flyers game, and because I was at a party, like a holiday function, and as I'm walking to the holiday function, I passed Nicholas Kronwall on the street. I did.
Was he limping?
He was not limping. He's a very big man.
Yes. Yes.
He's bigger than Peter Tessier, if you could believe it.
But if for example, we know how Babcock is in terms of players that he trusts. I'm not saying that there's any rumor about this, but if there's a player that he trusts, if there's a player who plays a style that he likes, he's going to play that guy. But Lou Lamoriello is going to be somebody who says, okay, we got to pay a bunch of guys next year. So if he wants to play 2 years, he's not going to be playing 2 years in Toronto. But if he guarantees us he's retiring, then I think the Leafs could be interested in a guy like Kronwall. But anyway.
I don't think they should go there. I really feel like he's close to finished. Like, I don't think you want to go that route. Now, Green looked good in yesterday's Flyers game. He could still bring the puck up the ice and do those things that you want him to do. Mm-hmm. He's going to still get a pretty good package. He will.
Now, Arizona, they lost a game to Florida, I think it was Tuesday. And Rick Tocchet comes out after the game and says, I just don't understand how we have the game in hand and all of a sudden it just turns. We will get it right. We are going to weed out some people out of here eventually and get this right. Russ, I don't know what the heck he's talking about because most of the guys that they have are youngsters. So, I know they sent Dylan.
Well, is Tocchet all of a sudden in charge of making trades? Because, like, I don't know if he's – was Chaika in on this? Like, this is a weird thing for a coach to say.
This is a post-game remark, so I would assume no.
Right. So I'm sure it was news to the GM as well, and they probably have already chatted about it because if they did chat about it, he probably wouldn't have wanted him to make that public before he actually starts offering up players at the deadline, let's say. I mean, this is a way to sort of kill value on players if you really are trying to move some guys. The coach should never do that, not in that fashion.
Yeah, right. Now, if you look at their roster, Brad Richardson, Zach Ronaldo, Luke Shen, Kevin Connaughton are the UFAs. Antti Ranta is a UFA, so they have to make a decision on him.
I mean, Luke Shen, they'll get a 4th round, 5th round pick for.
Yeah, but the name that I think will intrigue a lot of teams is Yarmulson because he's got another year left in the contract, $4.1 million, and in his situation after being in Chicago and winning Stanley Cups, unless he loves the golf in Arizona, I don't know about him re-signing a long-term extension with the Coyotes. So this might be an opportunity for Chaika to get himself, again, a first-round pick or prospects or whatever.
But again, see, I am a prospect guy, and I always want to gain as many assets as I can.
Yes.
If I'm trading Nicholas Hjalmarsson, I need roster players. I don't even want picks for him anymore.
Yeah, the problem is, Russ, that the teams that are going to be interested in him are teams that are, I'd say setting themselves up for a playoff run, and the last thing they want to give up are roster players. They'll give up.
No, but you could give me.
Okay,
Jake is in a hole, though. That's the problem. He's in a hole. You can't keep acquiring prospect draft picks without doing something with them. Right. But here's the thing: would the Leafs be interested in Hjalmarsson?
Yes.
They would. But before we go,
in theory, they should, right?
Yeah.
So there's a team that they can actually give a prospect that could probably play very soon, if not right now.
Well, here's my thing.
Probably get a draft pick.
Yeah, here's my thinking. If I'm the GM, like if I'm trading with St. Louis, then give me Klim Kostin. He's already playing in the AHL. Mm-hmm. He probably can come up at the end of the year just, to get a taste, and I'll get him in the lineup next year. If I'm trading with, let's say, and it won't be, but if I was trading with the Sabres, maybe I'm going to try and get Alex Nylander, who's in the AHL. I just want to get guys that are that close. I can't now get another guy that's 3-4 years down the line, or a draft pick that's 4 or 5 years down the line. I got to do better than that.
Let's use Winnipeg as an example here. Now, I don't know whether Winnipeg wants to add another defenseman. I mean, I think they'd probably have to clear like Enstrom's contract if they did make a move like this. But would they trade a Josh Morrissey for?
No.
Yeah.
No. Josh Morrissey is right now the best defenseman on the Jets.
Yeah, they're not trading him.
Yeah, no. So and
they would trade Trouba before they traded Morrissey.
Well, it would make more sense to trade Trouba.
Right.
And get something coming back with Hjalmarsson than it would trade Morrissey. Absolutely. Right. And I don't even think that's in Chevy's DNA right now.
No, I don't either.
But I mean, use Winnipeg. Winnipeg would probably want to send you, like, say they were talking, and you can take the age difference out of the way and the salary difference and stuff, and it's only a year left for Hjalmarsson. Say they would take someone off the farm team. They'd probably want to throw in like maybe a Brendan Lemieux who could play on the Coyotes, but isn't going to likely play on the Jets unless called up for injuries and stuff. That's the kind of thing they'd be looking to do. And there's enough teams that have that out there. And I see the Leafs, because they have a need on D, being someone like Sammy Kapanen.
Kasperi.
Sorry, I went Kapanen.
No, believe me, I hear announcers make that mistake all the time. So. But no, the thing is, I think that the Leafs will only trade Kapanen if they can get themselves what they think is a legitimate top four. I think Hjalmarsson is, so that would make sense. But if based on, I think they have an extra second round pick. They have some other young forwards that I think they'd be more amenable to moving, like maybe a Jeremy Bracco or somebody of that ilk. I still think Bracco eventually is going to be a line mate of Austin Matthews.
Me too. I think they're keeping him around for that. I don't think they're going to trade him.
But
last night, like Kapanen got rocked last night, right? Kapanen would be a guy that would come up in that trade talk. He would.
Yeah. Now, Pittsburgh made 2 minor deals, and Elliot Friedman in his 31 Thoughts said that this was, quote, the tip of the iceberg. And there are reports that now that they've got...
Wait, they're trading Iceberg? Because that's their mascot. You don't trade their mascot.
Now that they have an extra defenseman in Alexiak, who they apparently like, this frees them up to trade Ian Cole, who they don't like anymore.
Right.
And their aim right now is to find at least even a winger, but more unlikely a number 3 center. Because
I don't know if you're getting that for Ian Cole.
Yeah, I don't think so. Unless it's a number 3 center who's a expiring contract.
That's the only way.
Like Cole is, and I don't see it. But clearly, if you look at the standings, Peter, right now, Pittsburgh they're, I think, 2 points out of the bottom of the Metro division. They're, they've had injuries. They've had, I think Stanley Cup hangover, but Rutherford
burned out.
Yeah, right. But Rutherford's not. I mean, I don't think he's going to affect his core at all, but I think he's going to try to make some sort of, secondary.
They remind me of the 2012 Kings. They're going to limp right into the playoffs and start winning playoff games.
Yeah. They're the last team you're going to see in a 7th or 8th spot.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Imagine a first-round matchup of Tampa versus Pittsburgh.
Oh, that's a nightmare.
Tampa wins the President's Trophy with like 112 points, and they'll play the second wild card, and both wild cards are coming from the Metro.
Yeah.
So
that would be a nightmare for them. It would make other fans of other teams like the Rangers very happy.
Yeah. You know what that's a lot like? That's like 2011 when the Canucks won the President's Trophy, then had to face the Blackhawks for the 3rd year in a row, right?
Yes. And if it wasn't for that, who was the great defenseman who gave up the puck in overtime in Game 7?
Oh, what was his name?
Yeah. It's just somebody in the chat will probably say.
Was it Hamhuis?
No.
It was on the Blackhawks.
On the Blackhawks.
Yeah, it was some of the
Burroughs took it and scored too.
Yeah, right, exactly. Somebody who was like a rental at the end of the year. Anyway, okay. Speaking of Vancouver,
I don't think Roosevelt was there yet.
No, it wasn't Roosevelt. It was somebody who was more of a skating offense.
Yeah, I'm gonna look it up right now.
It'll drive me crazy. So thank you, Peter.
I totally forget that series. You're right.
But one other note from Elliot Friedman. He says, call it more than a hunch, but I see Vancouver making an increased effort to move Erica Branson. Of course, I'm sure all the analytics aficionados are laughing their asses off. But honestly, if it was a question of trading for Mike Green, if from the Toronto perspective, because that's what I think about, if it's a question of trading a low first-round pick for Mike Green or trading a second-round pick for Erica Branson, I'm trading for Gabranson. I think he gives the Leafs more than what they need than Mike Green.
No, I agree. And I'll tell you, again, this is the same. This goes under the same heading of, hey, they never get that opportunity. Gabranson has a hell of a shot too, but again, nobody ever wants to put him in that role to take a shot. So.
Well, he's only got
put up a few points.
He's only got 1 assist in 21 games, so he's clearly not fitting with what Travis Green is doing. They're going much more up tempo, and and he's not an up tempo guy, but he's not. He's a right hand shot. He's a big body. He can kill penalties. I think he can play on a top 4.
Very physical.
Very physical.
Shot blocker. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's going to be motivated because he's going into unrestricted free agency and probably wants to put on a show to make some money next year.
The reason why they could trade Gabranson, I mean, look, Olli Juolevi will be playing in the World Juniors.
Yes.
He's having a great year this year overseas. If they don't send him to the AHL, he's really close. Like, he might be able to walk into the NHL job next year.
And given Vancouver's D, he probably should be able to. It's pretty thin. But you know what? It has not worked. Since Goodbranson arrived to Vancouver, it just hasn't worked. And
I don't think he's killed him. I just think it hasn't been a perfect fit. That's
and it's not Goodbranson's fault. It's not right. It's not the right place for him. And he's not what I thought the Canucks thought they were getting. And I don't think the situation that he came into was structured well for him. Now, had he not been injured, and if he could weather through under Travis Green, that might be a different story. But that opportunity isn't going to happen. So they've got to, Jim Benning's got to cut his losses, and and I expect Benning to be a little bit active. I mean, the Canucks are done. They're sinking faster than the Titanic right now. They've got, it's a miracle Besser isn't out after what he took the shot.
It is a miracle. Here's the thing, though. So Jared McCann, if people are going to pine away, I mean, he's got 9 points in 23 games. He had 18 points in 69 games that year with the Canucks. He may only get 20-something points this year. He is 21, so there's still some upside, but he still may not be any more than a 35-point guy in the NHL anyhow. So whatever this other value is that they get for Gabranson could still very well be worth it.
Yeah, I've been one of the toughest critics on the Canucks. I mean, I thought that they were going to fail. I thought they were stupid to go in the direction that they went in terms of signing guys like Louis Eriksson. I've been impressed with them and Green letting the young guys play, bringing them along, moving the Sedins into a secondary role, getting something out of veterans like Vanek. But now with Horvat out, Besser,
Horvat,
didn't get hurt, and
Sutter out too.
Yeah, and I think Edler was out for a while, and
it's ugly.
And Tanev is out again.
Yeah,
that was the thing. Everybody's saying, "Oh, they're not gonna trade Tanev." Tanev gets hurt every year. I mean, at a certain point, you've got young mobile guys like Stetcher. You've got I know they like Hutton. They can't get rid of Edler. But a guy like Tanev, who's got a couple years left in his contract, he keeps getting hurt.
Yeah. The thing about Tanev is he's just asked to do so much, right?
Yes.
Like, and look at so you have Tanev and Edler, and then what? It's a hot mess in Vancouver on the blue line.
Yeah.
And so I have a theory about something with the Jets and doing this as well, because another player who drives Jets fans nuts, and I'll come back to Tanev here, is Matthew Perreault, because he's always getting hurt.
Right.
But now they put Perreault down a line, down onto the fourth line. He's only playing about 10, 11 minutes a night.
Yeah.
He's super effective, but he's not getting beat up.
Right.
That's the difference. And if you could get Tanev in a better situation where he doesn't have to be all things to everyone, you probably maybe aren't seeing the injuries because he doesn't have to play the way he does right now.
That's fair.
And that's a theory, right? But Tanev. There's another guy that, Lamoureux should be calling Benning up about every other day. And saying, what's it going to take?
There was a lot of Tanev talk last summer because him and Riley played at the World Championships together, and they played great. It was a very complimentary pairing. And Tanev as a right-hand shot would fit in perfectly with Riley and would allow them to put Hainsey down on the bottom pairing, which would dramatically improve the Leafs defense. The injury to Zaitsev has really shown how fragile the Leafs defense is.
Oh, yeah.
By the way, Russ, it was Chris Campoli. That was the
Chris Campoli.
Could not think of it. Thanks for. So Vancouver, Arizona.
I'm sure the Islander fans in the chat room said something about that.
I'm sure. And obviously, of course, the Ottawa Senators. I know that there were reports before the outdoor game that Pierre Dorian's phone was ringing off the hook. It probably still will be until the deadline, unless they turn it around and have this Andrew Hammond run and get back in the playoff race. But the thing I don't know is realistically, are they going to trade any of these guys? Is this all just BS? Is it all just noise?
Because again, next year, if they want to, let's say Logan Brown has a great World Juniors. He already got close to making the team this year. Mm-hmm. Logan Brown walks in. Thomas Chabot, he's already there.
Mm-hmm.
Colin White will be back with the big club next year. I think they're trying to, at this point, because of the injury, I know he's playing down the A, and every day in the chat room, they always say, why don't you mention Colin White? I love Colin White. I think they're protecting him from what's going on with this team.
Yeah.
And that's probably a good idea, and just letting him get some pro games under his belt and letting him shine on that team. But he'll be there. So they could lose some bodies and not take a huge hit.
Well, and I heard it explained.
And I know I'm including Erik Karlsson in just casually saying that. But these are, if they get the right deal for him, they might not be all that hurt.
Well, I heard it explained that if you look at the Senators roster and their pay scale, Mark Stone's coming up for RFA. So is Cody Ceci. Ceci's probably going to want in the $4 to $4.5 million range. Stone has been a consistent scorer. He's probably going to be looking for more like a Pasternak deal, closer to $7 million. And they have two guys. Karlsson is in the stratosphere. He's making 7.5. He will deserve to make 10, 11, 12 million, whatever he can get. They've got two overpriced guys, Peter, and I don't know whether Pierre Dorian or Merlin the Magician could get anything for Bobby Brittlefingers Ryan or Dion Phaneuf, because Phaneuf's got 3 years left at $7 million, and I think the lack of speed is showing. He's declining. And the Leafs were lucky to get rid of him when they did. And Bobby Ryan, I wish he would change his gloves, because every time somebody slashes him, he breaks a finger. Can they get rid of either one of those guys?
You can, well, yeah, you can. It's just, it's what you expect to just lower your expectations.
Right.
Like lower your expectations of what you're going to get back for them. And that's all you have to do. I mean, is Melnick, I mean, anything with Melnick right now is going to be, if you're moving to $7 million salaries, or even one of them, he's looking at what's the net return cost to me. So if the net return cost again is to reduce salary, and you reduce it by $2 million, he's probably going to want to find a way to do it. You can reduce it by $3 million, he's going to want to do it even more. Mm-hmm. It's just a matter of, would he pay half of enough salary to have a $5 million hit overall with what he gets back for it or something, than paying $7 million. I mean, that's all it's about. It's just shuffling the deck chairs. Because as we were talking before last week, a lot of the deals they made going up to it were pushing the salary hits further out from them, right?
Right. Yeah.
And now, now he's got two that's come to roost. He'll probably go that same way again. Is how do I reduce this?
I'll give you a possibility here. Philly's always liked Bobby Ryan. He's a local kid. Now, Hextall does like trading under 30. He is 30, so I think clearly there's room left where you're not going to worry about Ryan being out for the length of his contract or something. That won't happen. Would they take back Andrew McDonald in return? They might.
Or Laterra.
But probably more McDonald, because they can at least plug in a defenseman. And he's still a pretty good defenseman.
And Dion Phaneuf together would be a Leafs fan's dream come true.
Ironically, that would be the exact opposite of the Phaneuf deal, in the sense that the Leafs took back more money short term to get rid of the long term hit. And then if they traded Bobby Ryan, I think has like 4 years left at almost, I think it's $7.8 million.
Yeah.
But I think if you put Ryan in the Flyers offense, you would get something pretty good. And I think towards the trading deadline, look, McDonald has been a big part of the Flyers, but unless the Flyers are truly in it, I get that they're only 2 points out and they're on a winning streak now, which is great. End of the day, if you look beyond that, they probably would like to lose McDonald's contract. And if they get Ryan in return, they're taking extra money on. And I think that's the kind of deal Ottawa would have to look at and accept.
I think it would probably have to be. I think it would have to be both. McDonald was, because McDonald's making $5 for 2 more years after this year. Laterra is making $4.7 for 1 more year. That's close to $10 million. But
they won't take both though.
Yeah. They might because it's shorter, Russ. The thing is that Ryan is making 7.8 for 4 more years.
No, I know. I still don't think they would take the 10 on. I think they would take McDonald, and then Philly would probably have to give him, a lower level prospect or a pick.
Yeah. Okay. Couple other things before we end the show. Some World Junior talk here, Russ. The Sabres released Alex Nylander to play for Team Sweden, which I think was. I was to say, but it must be a far trip from Rochester to Buffalo for them to not consider.
But think about what that will do for Alex Nylander. Just think about it. He will be a top line guy, a top power play guy on a big tournament, on the biggest stage, really, other than the NHL going on at that time, in his home area, right? In his the locals could see him, and this could really bring him a lot of confidence. He hasn't had the best AHL season, but you got to remember, playing at that level is not the same as playing at the AHL. So he will dominate at this level, and that could do wonders for him.
Yeah, and I also think it's going to take a little heat off of Dahlin, because of that local factor. I mean, a lot of the reporters are going to be focusing on, okay, here's Nylander, he's back on the international stage. I mean, most people are going to be looking at Dahlin and say, okay, and even like Sportsnet did a spot on Dahlin and how he's being compared to Carlson and Nick Lidstrom. And I mean, my God, you got to stop putting these expectations. I mean, I know he's a great prospect. He's going to be probably, I would say more than likely he's going to be the number 1 pick.
He looks like the number 1 pick now.
Yeah, but you got to stop with the comparisons.
Right. Yeah. I would stop with the comparisons, but more certain than the last couple of years, he's looking like the number 1 pick. And, I usually don't say anything that early, but it does look that way. But yeah, I think that's a pretty big deal. Now, what was funny yesterday is, Belarus played the U.S. team and they lost 14-0. The U.S. had a 6-goal period. I mean, it's tough. It's like, I know they have to fill the amount of teams that they have to fill to have a tournament, but boy, when you have these bottom teams, I can't imagine what happens when you go to the locker room and you're down by 6 goals. Like, how do you feel?
Yeah. You know, if you're going to include these teams in it that are developing nations, let's have an A tier and a B tier. And let's combine the tournaments, do something different. You can be innovative. But instead of just doing a round robin thing, shorten the tournament somehow, get rid of some of these other teams, or put them in the right place where they can develop properly. And then make the final a best of 3 and make it like something that matters. Who wouldn't, like, in any of the last finals in the last 20 years, who wouldn't want to see a best of 3?
I like that.
I mean, funny thing was, a couple years ago, I mean, there was the Maple Leafs have a Latvian kid, Martin Durkels, who's Latvian. He was on Team Latvia, and they, they qualified for the World Juniors last year, and that was, the country was all proud of that, and it was all great. And what they qualified for is getting massacred in the tournament last year in Montreal, and it's like, I don't know what the motivation there is. Okay, you get to the tournament just to get destroyed, and there has to be a better way for these countries.
There does. I feel bad for Riley Walsh. Gets a goal in that game and then he gets cut. It happens though. I mean, there'll be a few more cuts. The 23rd's the cut down day for the U.S. They play Sweden next in Erie, Pennsylvania. I've been there. That's a good rink. That's a really nice rink.
Yeah.
Now the Czechs did lose 8-0, but a lot of the big players were not there because they haven't been released from teams yet. So you have to take that into account.
And that's the thing. I don't know how. I mean, Team Canada wins 8-0 over the Czechs, and how does that really boost the confidence of Team Canada? I don't get it. Now it was a different tournament.
I think it's just, you know what it is. It's like if Peter and I say that we're going to enter like a 2-on-2 basketball tournament in Winnipeg, we'll probably do it in August because it's the only time that it's hot in Winnipeg. But I'm kidding. I'm kidding, Peter. But if we're going to do
Russ.
I know. But if we're going to do that, we want to probably play 1 or 2 games together, right? Just sort of see what our tendencies are, see how we're going to fare. Like, we're 2 aging guys. Like, we don't know what's going to happen. I just think anytime a team plays together, regardless of the outcome, it's always good because you're just getting used to playing with each other, seeing what the other guys – you know these players. You know you've played with them before, but there is something in your mind that puts you at ease once you're actually playing real games with them, even if they're exhibition games.
Okay. On that note, we will end the show.
I left Peter speechless. Sorry, Peter. Just so you know, in the 2-on-2, you're going to be the guy under the boards. I have a pretty good jump shot.
Peter,
I like that.
Peter is just formulating ways of like undercutting you under the basket.
There's no question. I got that feeling.
Well, thanks, Peter, for joining the show. For Peter Tessier, for Russ Cohen, I'm Michael Agello. Thanks all for watching, and remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey.